Red. All right, let's get going. Red Dead Redemption 2. Uh, Hello. Here we are, tier list time. Uh, I played this game at the beginning of this year, 2024, and it is a freaking awesome game. If you haven't played it, I would recommend heavily. Um, it's just definitely one of the best Rockstar games out there, and I see why when people always told me to play it, one of the best narratives you'll ever experience. When I played it, I'm like, yeah, I get what people are talking about. It's a great game, and the characters are fantastic. So, here we are. I got it. This is just the Vanderlyn gang. So pretty much anyone associated with that, we're going to be ranking here. I'm not going to be getting all the characters, like any character that's ever made an appearance. So we're just going to rank them in a tier list, S to F here. A few things. Once again, more just my feels, opinions on this stuff. I don't really have any parameters besides just how I enjoyed the character. I will say this is for the events of Red Dead 2 as opposed to 1. I actually have not played Red Dead 1. I do know about 1, so I will be bringing it up. But I'm not taking that into account with characters that show up in both, like Dutch, John, characters like them. So that's another one. Once again, it's just more like how I feel they were in the story, and that's really all I have for this. So let's get going. Um, First, I don't know who to start with. Do I just go in order here, or do I? I could probably leave some of the higher placed characters. I'll probably leave the big three to the end, because I feel like that will be more fun that way. Um, so let's discuss this right now. Um, who is somebody I want to talk about? I guess we could just start in order for now, and we'll see where we're going with that. Starting up is this is Trelawney, right? I forgot him and yeah, okay. Swanson's over here, the Reverend. Yeah, Trelawney always had the top hat on. Trelawney was a interesting guy, to say the least. He was definitely entertaining for the time he was in. He definitely wasn't held the spotlight like some characters did, but I did not hate him. I thought he was really enjoyable. He's kind of a goofy con artist type of guy. Um, of course, didn't do many of the dirty work like some of the main characters did. But once again, I think I just don't really have much of else an opinion on him. I just enjoyed him, but never really had too much strong of an opinion. My heart's telling me C, but I may move it down to D just because there's a lot of characters I really like, and I don't know if I want to put him if it's a character that I'm okay with versus a character that didn't have too much of an impact on me. So Trelawney's gonna go right there. And yeah, Karen. She's next. Karen was also very enjoyable as a character as well. I'm actually gonna group them together. I know it's maybe pretty obvious that they are grouped together, but they're always seen together. Karen, Mary Beth, and Tilly. All three were very great. They definitely showed a different side of the gang. All kind of had more rough lives growing up, and so they were taken in. Obviously they don't do maybe a lot of the more gang activities that Dutch, Micah, John, Arthur do. They do kind of more side roles there. They help out at the camp a lot, but show that like just the world has been pretty harsh to a lot of people, and even though they're taken in, more led down a less moral path than some would choose. um it is it's still nice. I think they're all very had that obviously a very caring side to a lot of them too. Their relationships with all the other characters are very nice as well. um I guess spoilers too. I think I forgot to mention that, but yes, obviously I'll be talking about spoilers here. We're gonna have to, but it's nice to see at least two out of the three, Mary Beth and Tilly, in the end had a seemingly good normal life. Tilly got married to like a wealthier man and seemingly had a good life. Mary Beth, I think, was like an author. Karen went missing, I'm pretty sure. But it's nice to see that they did find something at the end of the tunnel. They did have a good life ahead of them at the end, so that's nice. Moving on, we got Javier. I like this guy a lot. I've seen different things on him. Obviously, once again, this is a character that's in both. Going to be ranking him on just how I felt. I enjoyed him. I think he's going to go in a B tier for me right now. From him. He is one that obviously, if you played both games, he eventually will kind of side with Dutch at the end and go into that side. I always just felt there was some reservation for him, especially from some of the other characters like, you know, Bill or Micah. Um, I don't know. I don't think he like had super biases against anyone. I think he was more just loyal for like his values more than anything. Um, but he was still just he was an interesting character, fun character to have around. And I just genuinely liked him. For the most part, nothing's like super standout, but he was just all around a pretty cool character, to have on missions and stuff like that. Let's go to Sadie Adler is next, and I think she might be my first S tier. Um, if you've played the game, you know Sadie. um, that was such a character that I did not expect to have such an impact. Um, Playing the game for the first time, just she was in the prologue. Husband got killed, and I didn't think anything of it, and turning out to be an extremely important character by the end of it. Um, Obviously, kind of shaken up at the rough. We show her in real life, kind of what the three girls down here experienced. We get to watch her experience real time. It was just a housewife enjoying the best she could, probably, I'm gonna assume, and then got her husband got killed by the O'Driscolls, and we took her in just out of pity. The gang did. Um, she obviously was pretty shaken up, kind of became a little bit more cold, but as like people started dropping, people left the gang, dying, stuff like that, she ended up taking more of a role that a lot of the more, I guess, men would have done, and starts becoming her own cowgirl-esque thing. And it was just really cool to see her personality kind of come through, and it was definitely, you see how it shaped, how her personality was shaped by the harshness of the world displayed back then. And just how she changed as a person. It was still really cool watching her just grow relationships with people like John and Arthur. And, you know, maybe not seeing that everyone is a piece of shit, I guess, so to speak, but still had to be very tough. Then her in the epilogue, it was really nice seeing her. She kind of became a bounty hunter, enjoying, I guess you could say, enjoying her life to the best of her ability. She didn't meet a extraordinarily tragic end like a lot of the characters have in this list. And I really like that, her with some of the other characters that you see in the epilogue. It's just really nice to see, and then her to eventually get revenge at the end of the game by coming up there. One of the characters that seems to have a solid ending too. I think nothing really was stated for sure, but most likely just had a good life outside. I think she, something like that. So, yeah, just a great character. I, once again, went from just having no opinion on her when I started the game to just, wow, she's an amazing character, and every time she was on screen, it was just good. Voice actor killed it. Just everything about it was fantastic. Awesome character. I'm going to skip Dutch, and we got Strauss. I think anyone who's played the game probably is going to put Strauss in the lower tiers. He's just an asshole. Strauss is your debt collector. He doesn't do any of the physical work. He just does a bunch of finances, but then, well, I guess not even a debt collector. He's a loan shark, makes everyone else be the debt collectors for him. Like Arthur. Technically, it was him that is the one who gave Arthur, well, got Arthur to get contracted with his illness in the first place, as he got coughed on in one of his first early debt collecting missions. And it's just kind of like, once again, maybe not necessarily his fault, but he is a douchebag as opposed to everyone else maybe who does things with some sort of moral side. He just preys on people who he knows can't pay it back, and then has some people tougher than him and them go physically beat them until they get as much money as he can grab. It is kind of fucked up thinking about it. I guess I didn't even like think about it at first. I'm like, yeah, that's fair, but like, no, it's there. There's a lot of people he just takes a lot of advantage of, and he's kind of a shitbag for that. The only thing that puts him there, like, not fully, is that, like, I think it was like in the end of the game where he did die getting interrogated, I think, by the Pinkertons, but he reported that he didn't give up anything. He kept his mouth shut and died, not ratting anybody out, which is cool. For him being a little rat, he ended up not being a rat, so that's cool. I'll give him props for that. Not like irredeemable, but he's still kind of a shitty character. I didn't really care for him either. It's like I really didn't like his debt collected. I kind of stopped doing them near the end of the game. I didn't really care to do them. There was other place to get money, and I just found them more fun. Maybe that was the point. you hate him. So, yeah, moving on here. We got the man, the boy, my dude Lenny. I fucking love Lenny. Lenny might go in S tier. He'll go in A tier for now. Lenny's the GOAT. Lenny is so awesome. Once again, a character every time you've done a mission with him, like you get him as your partner for that mission, you're like, hell yeah, it's gonna be a fun one. Lenny was so just endearing of a character. To just be around. The one mission where you guys get drunk at a bar and you just keep shouting Lenny was just obviously like just a classic. Getting into the fights with everybody. It was really nice watching him and Arthur kind of, seem like, it felt like Arthur was kind of like his big brother. He saw him as like a little brother type of deal. It really felt that way. And it really felt that somebody cared about, like just a little younger of the gang in relative to a lot of the other people here, but still having to deal with a pretty harsh life. Obviously being black in that time was, not super great. Still a lot of high racial tensions, if you couldn't guess. It was just, but there was not necessarily any discrimination in the gang, at least from like when you played as Arthur. And it's just nice that they see that they formed a bond despite everything. And it really sucked when he did die in the bank robbery. He got shot. Kind of obviously a lot of people just ran past him because there wasn't really much time to mourn, but like you just saw like Arthur kind of go down and just hold his body for a few seconds just to give him that little thing. That might have been one of the saddest right there, just kind of seeing how he was tossed aside. It was sucky. Really wish that he had a better in a sense funeral. I think they eventually did recover his body. They said through some dialogue, and was able to bury him proper with some of the other characters, but it's still sad. There's a character that was taken too soon, and like I said, a really young guy, so it sucks that he had to get thrust into this type of life too, like many of the other characters. But once again, just an enjoyable dude all around. Bill Williamson. I'll probably put him in D. I didn't like him. I thought he was a dick most of the time. Not like a fun dick either. Like he was just I don't know. Once again, didn't play one. One of the characters would show up there. I just didn't have much of care for him. I think some people might enjoy him a decent amount. You get to play with him a lot, or play adjacent with him. You get a lot of missions where obviously he does a lot of the more active missions, as he's one of the kind of Dutch's main hands there. But he's just kind of really loyal to Dutch, and I think there's stuff in his character explains why he is super loyal to like almost a fault there. I just didn't really care as some other characters. Just personality-wise, didn't really vibe with as much. He just felt like a generic hick dude, in my opinion. Maybe because it didn't help that his name was Bill Williamson. It was just a generic country hick name, so yeah, I don't know. Like I said, not hate him. I just think like other characters, pretty much anyone else I would top of, because I think they were enjoyable. But it wasn't enjoyable. Pearson, kind of a dick too. He was the camp cook. I think he, it wasn't like awful. He's just kind of like cold, douchey all the time. Especially in the beginning. I do remember like when Sadie kind of first got over initial shock, was helping out doing chores, like a lot of the other more like the females were doing a lot of the more chores type around the camp, while the men were doing the hunting, the robbing, the stuff like that, and like he was just being a douche to her, like for like cooking and stuff. And I think he was like, I'm not doing this shit, and wanted to do more of the, I guess you could say, active stuff. I don't know, just a lot of his interactions kind of made it seem like, I'm almost like, why are you here, man? You seem like you hate everyone almost half the damn time. I don't know. He seemed like, I think over time he softened up a little bit, but I think he dipped. One of the ones who dipped near the end of the game. And then you can find him alive. I think he's just running a general store in the epilogue. So I mean, at least he seems better then. But once again, just kind of for the most part, he's just kind of a character that was there, existed, and a lot of his interactions were pretty damn douchey, all things considered. So. All right, Abigail next. I don't know how to feel about her, if I'm being honest. Once again, this might be better if I played one, because a lot of her beginning stuff is just kind of aggressive. Obviously, like, go find John. I need John. It was like a lot of that, or obviously, it felt like she was just more of like like, not like plot device, but just kind of used for a lot of that stuff for a lot of the game. Like the beginning is like go find John. Then there's a point in the game where Jack gets kidnapped by the incest families down south, and she's like, "Oh, go save Jack." It's like, okay, it's like it just felt like it's just like maybe not like that, but just constantly always moving that stuff. And once again, it's kind of one of those characters you didn't. Maybe at least for me, you had in the back of your head, like I know that she was going to be in the next game because I obviously knew the plot of the first game for the most part. So it's like I know nothing bad was going to happen or nothing crazy. I guess I didn't maybe invest a whole lot of time. At the end of the game, she got fine. So I think that's why I want to put her. I'm going to put her on C right now, but I'll see about that. Maybe B, because once again, near the end of the game was pretty cool. She was getting pretty badass, and then I did like that. Yeah, I will put her on B. I liked at the end. She was pretty cold to a lot of the other people besides like John. But even then, you saw her warming up to Arthur too a lot when they kind of became a lot more closer and saw that there was a big divide going on in the gang. She stuck with I guess, the protagonist and felt like a good confidant, and then had a couple badass moments, like with like that got hostage, was I think about to be held hostage by the Pinkertons. Wasn't she the one that shot the douchebag in the head? That was badass. One of the main detective Pinkerton guys. I don't remember his name. Agent Miller, something like that. It was some generic sounding name, but either way, it was cool. So I think, like they said, she kind of came around near the end, but at that point, it was just like, no, there's characters I prefer more. So, Reverend Swanson, another guy that I think at the beginning he would have probably been the D tier, but like, it was weird. Yeah, he was just, of course, when we start the game, he is just a lame alcoholic failure, like really not contributing to anything. You almost had to like go out of your way to like make sure he wasn't getting into trouble. um Over time he got a little better as he, I think, started sobering up a bit more and being a little bit more, just, what's the word, introspective on his actions. um and I think he like kind of cleaned up his character a lot more, where by the end of the game he just seemed like a pretty cool guy, and it's like kind of one of those characters that you were like, I don't know, at least I was rooting for in the back of my head, like, yeah, you get better. He was doing better, and you like saw him moving, and it's like it made you feel good, like, yeah, he's fixing his life around a little bit too. And if I remember correctly, he lived. He is alive, it looks like. So is he the one that ran away? I can't remember. Once again, mixing him and Trelawney up a little bit. There's one on when they met at the train station near the end of the game. Like Arthur just kind of let him go, but either way, it was just one of those characters where, like, most likely, I hope he found something, and outside the gang, he eventually found sort of happiness, so to speak. So, yeah. All right, next up, Hosea, because I'm skipping the main three. Hosea was a very cool character. Starting the game immediately, like Dutch was the leader of the gang. Hosea was like the more brains, wise mentorship of the gang. He was like all the brawn, the muscle, and kind of the bravado. He had a lot more tactical mindset. You always came to him for the wisdom needed. That Hosea brought that. He was an older guy. You could tell too. Like his death was one of the biggest writings on the wall since like the beginning of the game. I think he straight up says like, I'm not gonna be around for much longer just because he's older. And you could tell very early on that he was the glue that kept Dutch from fully falling apart. And once he got killed in the bank heist as well, it all fell. It all fell there. But it was nice seeing him. He felt like you're kind of the grandpa of the gang, kind of in the sense, or the father of the gang. Just the fishing trip you had to hang out with him on. It was nice. Once again, just kind of a good point to always go back to for whatever you needed. I liked in the mission where you got to go recover Jack and take out the Braithwaites and the Greys. Like that whole mission, I think it's the Braithwaite Manor. Like you got to see his like kind of like his darker side too come out a little bit. Like you got to see like where he got some of the bite to him too. He's not just old like kind of grandpa. Like even that whole chapter was a lot of Hosea focused, and I like that a lot because you saw his like kind of diplomacy side kind of playing the game and his more tactical end. Of course, they were getting played as well. We find out pretty fast that they were getting played just as much, but they ended up obviously coming out on top. They had a few deaths, of course. which suck, but yeah. Uh, it was cool. I think Jose just obviously there was a lot to him. We got to see him at the end of his life as opposed to maybe more in his prime, but I think he would have been pretty just as equally awesome in his prime. Obviously, with all that years on him, he got to have some of the most wisdom out of pretty much anybody in the entire character roster of Red Dead 2. But once again, sucks that he died. It was one of the biggest obvious tellings that he was going to not make it very far because of how the game will go into Red Dead 1 being a prequel. So, makes sense that way. But still loved him. He was a great guy. Um, Speaking of great people, the absolute goat, Charles Smith. Oh my god, this guy was so cool. Taught you hunting right away, and I'm like, okay, but like the entire game, he was probably one of the biggest bros of all time, and he is just one of the peak characters here. Obviously, he and Sadie had enough time to shine, being both characters that helped out John in the epilogue of the game, which was nice, and I'm glad that they kind of got that. I'm glad he was one of the characters that didn't have a terrible end to um, obviously kind of was one of the more outcasts of the gang, being mixed of Native American and black heritage. So he definitely wasn't fitting out in the public sense. And, you know, while in the gang, they don't think they really took that too much into account for the most part, at least most of the characters didn't. Um, you know, there was still that, that probably that underlying kind of factor that a lot of the characters saw him as. But Arthur didn't, you know, he never really saw that. And you got to see them as just kind of good friends helping each other out. And once again, near the end of the game, you got to see a lot of the he was a lot more focused since he was just very stoic, kind of very tropey in a Native American sense with his stoic, strong type. But once again, he came into his own character, especially with the whole Native American kind of arc near the end of the game with Rainfalls, and I can't remember their names. I'm sorry, off the top of my head. Um, oh gosh, I'm trying to think. Eagle Flies, that's the other one. Rainfalls and Eagle Flies. Um, the other two, like the two Native Americans we really focus on with that tribe. Obviously, his character, I was like immediately, it was like, yeah, he's gonna have a big importance here. But even then, a lot of the gang was like divided at that point. Dutch and those guys were treating them like dicks, like Arthur and John. But Charles always had their back. It's like the one where he want Dutch made Arthur go right alone, and then Charles was like, no, I got it, I'm coming with him. It was just really cool. Once again, Charles had his back up until the end, and that was so cool to see. And there's honestly not a better character to be that kind of bro, dude. And once again, probably my favorite character that wasn't a playable character, at least I think, because he was just such a cool dude all around. Once again, seeing him in the epilogue too, just helping build the house with everybody. It was nice. It was just a nice feeling seeing him. And then I think he was one that too said he was probably going to go up to like Canada. My guess is probably do similar stuff, just helping out the tribes, especially with a lot of the discrimination they were facing during that time. Um, that's what I like at least believe. Once again, he at least lived a longer life than a lot of these characters, and I'm glad that he at least had some sort of end that was a little bit more fulfilling. Um, so yeah, no, he was just a fantastic character. Definitely just awesome, bro, right here. All right, next up, Grimshaw, Miss Grimshaw, Susan Grimshaw. I put her to B. I liked her. She was fun. Um, if Dutch was like the head, you know, he was like the Hosea was the father type. She was definitely like the matriarch of the group in that sense. She took care of a lot of the not, you know, the more, why am I like blanking on that word, you know, the more, you know, she was in charge of like the women and the men who weren't doing the active cowboy lifestyle, you know, like Pearson and stuff, where they were doing the food, the cooking, the preps, the cleaning, breaking camp. She was kind of ahead of all that, and she didn't take no shit. She was pretty cold. She was pretty like harsh, but I think obviously with good reason to kind of keep a lot of these people in line, and you could feel that there was that respect for her, um, which is really cool. And once again, she wasn't like overly douchey like some of the characters were, but had a good head on her shoulders as she just was able to keep a lot of the other people in check for the most part. And once again, too, at the end where she ended up getting killed, but standing up to like at least defend Arthur one last time was really nice, and sucky that she had to get killed out Really, such a unfashionable way. One of the characters who had such a just a very just quick death. It was like, oh shit, she just died. Um, it sucks that that happened, but I did at least enjoy her character, and she was really cool to just be around. Micah. All right, so Micah might be a controversial character because he is a fucking asshole, but he played that asshole part so well. Um, you aren't supposed to like Micah in the sense of wow, he's such a nice character. You're supposed to hate him, but that's the writing of a good villain, a good antagonist. He is all on purposes the main antagonist of this entire game. Obviously, you could try to say the primary one would eventually be Dutch, but Micah was always just that thorn in the side. You kind of had to fight with him and eventually lose, or depending on which side you're on, which how good your honor is for Arthur. But then he's pretty much the final guy you take out as John too at the end of the game. But he was just a douchebag through and through and played that part fantastically, always just causing issues, always in Dutch's ear, kind of swaying him to the side, especially once again when Jose and some of the other characters were gone. He was doing just all sorts of his own scheming to do pretty much whatever. You know, even then, I still don't know what his full true goals were besides just being that kind of guy, but I liked it. And even then, there's still some points in the game, some points where he had missions, where it's like, there were some points that made you want to be like, man, maybe he isn't an asshole, like, completely. Like, he obviously is an asshole, but, like, maybe he isn't always perpetually a douchebag, perpetually just this big hunt, you know? But there was a few of those times where I'm just like, maybe not. Maybe he could be redeemed. And he wasn't. Well, he wasn't redemption. Red Dead? Okay. Um, but no, it was definitely just a fantastically written villain and just perfectly filled that role. And that's why I like him. He was good. Um, and you can't say he wasn't entertaining. I feel like that's one of the biggest things you can say. He was entertaining as all hell. Oh, all right. Now I got that out. Once again, don't know how controversial that is, but if it is at all, who knows? Molly kind of sucks. I don't know what else to say. She just exists. Like, she just really caused nothing but some drama. I mean, once again, uses like the obvious red herring, um, for being the rat of the group, and it was actually just Micah the entire time. And she ended up just getting killed by Grimshaw. Just like, nah, we don't take no, because she did admit to being the rat. But either way, it was fine. She was causing a bunch of issues anyways. I didn't like her. She just wasn't fun. I didn't feel like she had much character besides just clinging to Dutch's side for the first half of the game. So it's just like, all right, fine, be gone. It's cool. It was a character I really felt nothing for when she did just get killed. So I'm like, all right, it is what it is. Moving on. Jack. Once again, this is probably another big one. I feel like people maybe would like him. I'm gonna put him in D. I gotta be honest. I think he was meant to show like a more innocent side to just this world because he just was a kid born into this life in a sense. But you know, he still was just a kid. He didn't have any of that other stuff, any of the traits yet, and he was just trying to enjoy his life as best as he could, given their situation. And it was fine. Um, that's really all I got to say for that. Obviously, once again, I know in Red Dead 1 you eventually take him up at the last of the game. I'm sure he had a little bit more as he was older then too, but for the most part of this game he's pretty young. And then in the epilogue, you know, he seemed a little bit older, which is cool. But even then, I feel like he just didn't really do a whole lot. I think he was still too young to join John or anything, and probably didn't. Abigail didn't want him to join for obvious reasons. So, yeah, nothing too crazy. I just don't know if I want to pair him with these two that I really didn't care for a whole lot. So I almost want to put him in C tier, but we'll wait. Sean. I liked Sean too. I think he's a B for me because he was taken way too damn early, man. He showed up partway through the game and then died so quickly after, it pretty much seemed like. But he was so entertaining for the time he was in the game. Yeah, it's just kind of like really just stereotypically Irish to a funny degree. Just had like all those little quirks about him. The accent was freaking funny as hell too. Just he always had on him. He always had something witty to say. Always had something funny to do. I just liked him. He had an upbeat vibe about him that was always nice. And then once again, it sucked. I like the relationship that he and Karen kind of had too. And then once, of course, he did get killed, saw her spiral down very fast. So it is nice that we actually get to see him for a bit. I just wish he was in the game a little bit more, even if he didn't make it to the end. It's just, it sucks, but it is what it is. I did enjoy him for his time. He could have been definitely like in an A tier probably if he was in the game for a bit longer, if I'm thinking. So, and lastly, Lumbago himself, Mr. Uncle. Honestly, I probably would have put him down here at the beginning, but the epilogue alone made me like him a little bit more. I even might put him in B, honestly. He if it was epilogue alone, I'd probably say like high B tier. But throughout the entire game, he didn't do anything. It's just like, if this was the biggest character, I feel like, of like they had him in Red Dead 1 and they needed to find a way to put him in Red Dead 2, but they're like, yeah, he doesn't really fit. So we're just gonna have Uncle here. That's what it felt like, and I think, yeah, I don't know. Once again, I can't really rate him on Red Dead 1 standards because obviously he did help put up a fight, but I always just found it hilarious, like just as a comedic relief character near the end of the game. Obviously, he had a lot of shit happen that was very sad, and then he comes in after you're kind of rebounding a little bit, and he's just there. You're helping build the house. He's just being lazy. Like John and Charles building the entire house, he's not helping, and he just kind of bums off Abigail and John for the rest of the game and to the rest of his life. But hey, I will say, give him props. Not gonna vote him on this, but he does help defend the gang to the last. I mean, you could say that he helped at least keep Abigail and Jack alive for the time being, and then obviously once John was killed in Red Dead 1, he was killed beforehand too. It sucks. Like I said, he wasn't an awful character. I think he just was kind of bleh. Like, he really just did nothing. Like, half the time he was just asleep or drunk or something like that, and was just being like, it really felt like just a homeless man has invaded your camp and you don't know what to do with him. So, the biggest thing. So seeing him show up again was funny in the epilogue, but it was nice to have some kind of relief at the end of the game, especially with just how emotionally heavy the climax of that game got, especially at the end of Arthur's story there. So, moving into the last three, I don't know. All right, well, Dutch first. I'll put him in A2. Dutch was great. First of all, I love his voice. His voice is just so great. Dutch is a clear leader. You see right away why he is the leader of this gang, just because he has that charisma about him. He has that like swagger on him too. I don't know. It's just everything about him was cool, and you had that aura of like, yeah, there's a reason why. Of course, at the beginning of this game, we already see his mental collapse into where we get to at the end of this game and Red Dead 1. But it's cool. Dutch was just overall just a fantastic character written. You saw that decline seep through, and part of me and a lot of other people, I think, want to see what he would have been like before the Blackwater incident, and just see how he would, because like obviously that was the biggest start of like just everything, and obviously the proceeding of the deaths of a lot of the allies close to him and just everything else happening. It's like, you always said he had a plan, but like you could tell like his plan was very loosely based, and it was falling apart at the strings. So once again, kind of as a more villainous type, it was nice to see him. Like I said, it was cool to see him as a you could see the villain show up, especially in 1, but you could also see the respectable leader that people like Arthur, John, and a lot of the other gang followed Dutch in the first place for. You could see the cracks of that there, and I think that was really cleverly done, where you got to see both sides of it very well. Like, he wasn't just morally white or black, you know. He had that gray, and just a lot of things about him were just really twisted. Definitely one of the most intriguing characters, just most complex too, I'd say, in the entire franchise here. So, all right. Lastly, John and Arthur. I'm gonna do this and this. So, John is fantastic. Let's not even front that. Once again, this is the biggest of I haven't played Red Dead 1, and I'm only basing this off of 2. John is cool. I liked him a lot. Kind of standoffish at first. It almost felt like they didn't get along with like Arthur and the other characters a whole lot, but they definitely got closer, especially once again the gang divide helped a lot. There's more just kind of focused on him, Abigail, and Jack, obviously. Um, but seeing the brothership kind of formed with Arthur was really cool at the end. And it did suck that, of course, at the end Arthur does die. I'll get to him in just a sec. But then, of course, the epilogue where he does take up the mantle. You see, he even kind of starts to resemble Arthur for a bit in the epilogue. And it's cool. Obviously, he doesn't want to get back into it. He wants to start his own life, but wanting to take out Micah and that last little strain on the rest of the family. That's all he really wanted to do. That was the only one he really had a grudge with. Like, obviously, if it weren't for what happened at the beginning of 1, he probably would have left some of those other people like Bill or Javier alive, where they're just whatever. It was Micah really the one causing issues with his gang that he was trying to form too. Really just seemingly wanted to take over Dutch, I guess. Maybe that was Micah's goal at the end. I'm not too sure. But John was a fantastic character, and I see why people love him a lot as a protagonist, and I kind of want to see how he would rank. Would he stay the same if I played one first, then 2? Who knows? I've seen people love him too just as much. Arthur as a protagonist, though, I think just beats it for me because he was fantastic through and through. The entirety of the game was fun. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. He was just... I think, obviously, a lot of it does bank on a lot of the characters like Charles and Sadie and Dutch and Lenny and, John, Abigail, everyone that he has a relationship with is fantastic. There's the classic, you're a good man, Arthur Morgan. It's like, I mean, that's of course if you do High Honor, I think, too, you get those lines where it's like, it is so cool seeing this character. And it was just, I don't know how to explain it, but it was just like fantastically written. All of his relationships were believable but cool. He had his own past that like he didn't like to dwell on. It was good at like talking to other people, burying them up. I don't know. It was such a fantastic character, and I loved every little bit of him. And once again, it made his death that painful because it does suck. I think that was another thing. Once again, I think if you do High Honor, because if you do Low Honor, I think you get killed by Micah. But if you do High Honor, Arthur just passes away from tuberculosis, and it sucks, but like it is such a weird grounded thing, which makes him as a character, because it is like obviously, you can tell it. Obviously, it's a game set in fiction. Some parts are based off nonfiction, obviously, but it's something so real was like his ultimate downfall. It's kind of weird. Like, obviously, a lot of these people get killed in like gunslinging battles, bam, bam, boom, yeah, stuff like that. But Arthur just passes away from a sickness that he's slowly dying from, and I don't know. It is such a weird thing to see, but like also really real. You kind of see that hit him in the scene where he goes to the doctor, and it is sad to see that like that's something that like he could have probably lasted a lot longer if not for that. But he knew his life was coming to an end, and he just really did his best to protect the people he cared about, and that was probably the coolest thing, seeing people like Charles, people like Sadie, John, all the people at the end of the game where he tried to make their lives as best as he could, even at the expense of his, because he knew he wasn't going to last long, and especially at the end of the game. I think he was fine at the beginning, kind of a little bit of a douche maybe to some of the other people, like didn't really want to get involved with certain things, which is fine. But seeing at the end how he was putting his life under all these other people because he cared about them, and that was really cool. Just Arthur's a fantastic protagonist, really one of the best in modern gaming, I'd have to say. So yeah, that's the tier list. Damn, they don't have Kieran on here. They kind of cut him. I guess some people don't count him. I would have put Kieran right here, like B. Exo Driscoll, cool guy. Just gonna get killed brutally, that sucks, but like I liked him. I thought he was a goofy dude. Alright, that's it. If you like this, let me know. I'm going to do more tier lists, probably, so I'll just do on games that I enjoy. And I don't know when I'll talk about Red Dead again, but I just wanted to talk about it somehow, and gushing about some of the characters is how I do it. So, yeah.